now from Nashville, Tennessee, it's time for another episode of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow, where all things related to your safety and security are discussed, detailed, and delivered to you. You may leave with a tip that saves you money or a tactic that saves your life. So here are your hosts, owner and founder of Defense Systems, Brink Fiddler, and owner and operator of Herring Technology, Tom Herring.
Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow. I'm your co-host, Brink Fiddler. With me as always, Tom Herring, my other co-host, founder and operator of Herring Technology. It's been a minute since we've done one of these, but felt like we would resurrect this thing. And there's so many topics to talk about in the world of safety and security, especially in the world that we live in today. So we're going to get back on it and start doing this on a more regular basis. So, Tom, how you been?
Good.
Yeah, busy.
Enjoying it.
Yep.
Trying to get people to move on with a little bit of security and enjoy life and not put the fear in them. And
yeah. Well, I'd say both of our businesses in the last couple of years have pretty well exploded. And so managing growth has been a struggle for both of us because we are both so passionate about our deliverable, right, and the quality of our product, if you will. And so Tom and I are both very, very, very hands-on with our companies, as I think any entrepreneur is if they want it to be a success. But as a result, we have put the whole podcast on the back burner. And
wait, you insinuate there's some that don't have hands-on?
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a way to do that?
Apparently, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we're in the wrong business.
Well, we just hadn't figured it out yet.
That's right.
We'll get there. Well, what do you mean? Says the guy who was just talking about retiring to Arkansas as soon as he can. You're already strategizing to get there.
My wife might hear this.
Well, okay. You think she doesn't know? You bought a truck with Arkansas tags, bro. I think there's a giant hint. We won't say where though, because that's your secret getaway. But,
that's true.
I want to introduce our guest today is Gloria Maas. Gloria currently works for me as our director of auxiliary programming, but she has her college degree in Homeland Security and Emergency Management. Comes to us from the independent school world where she worked as a coach and an instructor, and then served as the first enterprise risk manager for a very large, well-known private school here in the Nashville area. You obviously met her several years ago when she still worked at that school, and made the comment like, she's pretty sharp. I might talk about adding her to the team one day, and I said, not before me. And so I won, just saying. What we do is maybe a smidge cooler than what y'all do, or at least Gloria feels like it is, so she was able to come. Just saying.
Hey, watch it.
I'm just saying. So welcome, Gloria. We're glad you're here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
So, Tom, topic-wise today, what we want to hit on, and you and I talked on the phone the other day about this, but a lot of people, and we see this all the time, they'll have an event happen, they'll see something crazy happen in the news, whatever, then they take action. They want, all of a sudden, they want Herring to come secure, make my business a fortress and put all this technology in and do all these things, and then they never touch it again or never look at it again, and they forget about it, and then, or they come up with policies and procedures, which is Glow's specialty, and then they don't ever look at them again, and they just hope that in the moment, all that stuff's going to work because, well, you put it in, but surely it's going to work 8 years from now, even though I haven't touched it to make sure everything's working. So, I mean, you see this a lot, and I'm sure Gloria has seen the same when she does EOPs and tabletop exercise packages and things like that. But if you had to pick your top three, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but top three most common oversights in that area, what would they be for your clients?
Generally, number one would be it starts not fully vetting the facility, the operation, or whatever for the initial install. And people, they just don't know what they don't know. And so, as we've seen, events happen. People go crazy. They call us, come put this in, got to have this, got to have this, got to have that. And they haven't just taken the time to evaluate what they're going to do with that information. What's the process of getting there? So that would be number one is what are we getting? How is it going to work? What's the end game in it? We see that all the time.
Yep.
Hey, just we're throwing something at it. And don't get me wrong, that's what we do for a living. So if you're spending the money, hey, it helps us, but it's not satisfying to us. It's you're throwing money at something and not solving a problem, and that's a waste of money.
Sure.
And so it gives us a bad name in the end. It's great on the front end. We get the revenue from it, but they're not protected, and it's sad. And we have seen that over the past few years with all the different events of these companies rushing in, and they were doing nothing, and so it's baby steps. We're getting there. At least now they're taking note of it, and they're implementing it, and they're putting it in. But what we see is they're buying a system, and in a lot of cases they're buying multiple systems. How do they work together? What's the training that goes into it? What are we trying to achieve with that system? And it goes way beyond.
Well, let's be number 2, I guess. We moved on. That's right.
I can't count.
Yeah, no. Well, I just for everybody else to follow the bouncing ball, right? Number 1 is not properly evaluating the facility and what the needs are. Number 2 is what you're talking about, putting a system in, and
just walking away, turning it on, and thinking, "Hey, we're good to go here. We've got this." Okay. There's more to it, which is Gloria's expertise there of the policies and the procedures that go into it. And then number 3 is maintaining it. Once you have a plan and an objective, number 2 is getting it put in and installed, and knowing how it's going to work and training the appropriate people on it. And then number 3 is testing it. What are your procedures that go along with what we just put in? And that's where we see the biggest gap and the most frustration with companies is we understand it when we put it in. We tell them, we feel like they understand it, and then they never touch it again.
Sure.
And maintaining it, not only from a physical standpoint of maintaining it, but also maintaining that mind readiness for how are you going to react? What is your response going to be? Where is it separated in duties of what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And as you said, in tabletop exercises, that can be done. Real life, pen testing can be done to go back and see. And not only are we testing
people that don't work in our industry don't know what pen testing is. It's penetration testing. In other words, trying to sneak in past security for those of y'all that aren't in the industry. Right?
Sorry about that.
Not everybody nerds out on this stuff like we do.
So, but not only is that testing the equipment itself from a detection standpoint, but it's also testing their response. And are they in place to receive that response?
Glo, I'd say, I see out of the corner of my eye nodding your head, because I'm sure when you took this over at the school, you took over a system that was put in because we want to see the parking lot, so we got a camera here, and we want to see this, but there was no
that a tree grew right in front of.
Yeah, yep. Or there was no thought about what's the end goal, not just coverage, but what are we trying to accomplish? And then you also had to put together the whole response plan, because when you took over, you guys had unarmed contract security on the property and no response plan. I specifically remember talking to a staff member that worked at that school, and she said one day that one of the guards came in and told her she might want to call the police because there's a weird car in the parking lot. And it's like, why? What do we
Isn't
hire
that
you?
Your job?
Right. Well, right. So take it from here, and that because you've experienced it real world with a school. I think businesses, obviously school's a business, but I think businesses are notorious for it. But schools are so much dumped on them that's just like another thing. And the good thing about that school is they finally saw fit to have AU to
have that position,
take that and do something with it. And I think we'd really need to get there with more schools doing that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It was interesting. I think that two of the biggest challenges that I faced when I first started in that role was I had to kind of change the mindset, because you had mentioned people are reactive to situations, right? And then when it comes to safety and security, I had to kind of make it understandable of if we're only going to be in a reactive posture, then we're always going to suffer reputational loss, or, you know, things that are going to impact the operation that we're here to do, which is to teach kids. So when you kind of start having to shift the language to help understand the kind of the bigger picture, that helps start change the mindset of, okay, it makes sense to be a little bit more proactive in this space. And then it always comes down to money too. And I think a big hurdle is helping people get to the place of understanding you might have to spend a little bit more up front, but if you do it right and if you have an effective system put in place after, then it's going to end up saving you in the long run. It's just, that's a tougher conversation to have. I was fortunate that I had a risk register, so it was a tool that I could use that basically spit out data that showed this is where our biggest risks are, so this makes sense to put the money here. And a board that understood that kind of language and was willing to allocate funds for it. So that was helpful for me.
Well, I think that is a really important note, though, the documentation too, because not even in business, or not just in business, but academia. I mean, Tom, you used to be a teacher, so you've like.
Sorry, former student.
Yeah, he apologizes. But we already asked people in education to do so much, right? And their primary number one goal is education and nurturing these kids, right? And so getting them to kind of step out of that bubble a little bit and into this world. Number one, it's scary, so we don't want to think about it. Number two, that is a lot of money. Why are we spending that much money on a camera when look at this camera. Look, the image is great, and I can put it up, and I can do it myself, and our IT guys can do it, and it'll serve the same purpose, and it's a third of the cost. And what they don't know is that they're not all created equal, and that's where they need a hearing to educate them. That's the one thing I love about what y'all do with clients in this room, in the treehouse we call it, right? Is that you educate people. It's not a sales pitch. You bring them in, you educate them on the technology side of the house, and I think that is super helpful. And obviously, you've made a living doing it, but I think it's super helpful in educating clients. That's why they keep coming back, because you don't just install your stuff and walk away or push them towards a certain camera or a certain technology. You educate them, and that's huge.
Well, it goes back to what Gloria said of the mindset, and that's where we learned years ago that it's easy to go sell technology. It's easy to sell cameras and do this. But what we started noticing were these clients that were doing it, they're just throwing money at it. And then how do they work together? And then what am I supposed to do with the information I'm getting from that? And we live, as you said, in a reactive world. And our whole goal right now is to switch that to a proactive with the technology you have to help prevent, rather than just go back and clean up and litigate and all get frustrated at the BS system that we have of what they're going to go through. And let's stop that. That saves everybody money in the beginning. But it's funny when you say change the mindset, that's what, psychologists and all these experts with those PhD things and all that kind of stuff, they talk about behavior modification. And generally, they're talking about the adversary.
Sure.
Well, protection starts with behavior modification of the client.
100%.
And that's what we have fought, and we battle, and we go in. And, I mean, people look at us like we're crazy. They'll call us, hey, I need some cameras over here. Can you send somebody out to take a look at it? It's like, yeah, it's not that simple. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, we need to come look at the place. We need to interview several people within the facility. Because, number one, we need to know, do they have the personnel there that can handle what we're putting in, or is it, because if we're not, by all means, go buy some piece of crap cameras and stick them up and hope they record, because then you can go back afterwards and look at it. Don't waste your money.
And they can at least maybe be a deterrent.
Correct. Yeah. Which, a deterrent without a response is just.
That makes sense.
No.
But if people want to see what being reactive instead of proactive looks like, look at crime in the United States of America right now. After we went through, I'm serious. I mean, after we went through the whole defund the police movement and all that craziness, there are very few cops. The landscape of law enforcement has changed in this country. There are very few cops doing anything proactive. Number one, they're short on personnel. Number two, you have, a lot of district attorneys that are looking to prosecute cops, so they've stopped doing anything proactive.
Instead of the criminals.
What do you get as a result of that? Crime skyrockets when you don't do anything proactive, and it's the same here. I mean, just with safety and security.
But Brink crime has dropped. Oh, sorry. The FBI just revised that yesterday. It didn't drop. It actually increased 4.5%.
Funny how statistics work, right? There's a saying out there, there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics.
Yeah.
All very true. So you can make numbers do anything you want to. We had a chief of police here in Nashville that used to do that quite regularly. But on the ground, Gloria, we call her Glow, by the way, in case y'all didn't figure that out.
She's glowing.
On boots on the ground, like when once you convinced them, okay, this needs to be done. I guess what were your? Obviously, I know you came here and got an education because I was here for it. But
Yep.
But
one of my favorite days.
But when I met you, you already had already educated yourself quite a bit on the technology side of the house and had done a lot of research. But once you got the green light, okay, we're going to move forward, not only with the technology upgrades, the whole programming, the risk program, but also you implemented the armed guard program too, which is probably time for another episode. But what would you say step one was for you, and did it work? And what if you're talking to other people in your position, what would you tell them?
Sure. So one of the challenges that we had for the campus that I was on was how big it was. It was essentially a small college campus. So it had lots of acreage and multiple different buildings. So the money that it would take to put physical people in all of those places to be armed guards would have been a very big amount of money that would have continued every year after that, right? So it made sense to slow down and figure out, okay, so how can we get cameras with technology that can act as people essentially for us and communicate with us in real time and tell us things that are happening in places that we can't be all the time. So that was kind of the foundational understanding of, okay, well, this is why we're putting the money in to build this system up. And
just for people that don't understand, you're talking about analytics, right? You're talking about cameras looking in certain areas that notify you. You can set them to notify you if there's movement in this portion of the screen between 3 p.m. and 8 a.m., whatever it is, instead of having a physical guard there. You still get somebody watching, i.e. the camera, and you still get the notification via the analytic.
Right. So if we know that off in our student parking lot area, there's not supposed to be any movement during the school day, and we have a camera there that's now able to communicate, to a guard who maybe is, 500 yards away from that parking lot, that, hey, there's something going on here, you need to take a look. Then they can look at it and be like, okay, I need to go check this out and go see what's going on. Right. That was kind of the idea.
So I guess that was step one, because when you looked at the ongoing expense of that many personnel, granted, the camera system, I'm sure, the increase in your technology footprint was, I'm sure, not cheap, but it, from a longevity standpoint and lack of recurring expense standpoint, it made the most sense. So that was it. Once you showed them that, I guess it was a pretty easy sell.
Yes, that was at least that was my strategy.
Sure.
It'll cost this much up front, and there will be, some continuing costs with maintenance and upkeep and having techs come out when needed, but it's going to be far less cheaper than hiring, 6 more people that we're going to have in a full-time capacity, and their turnover, who knows what that's going to look like. So training, upkeep, and so it was simpler. And I also started from the outside in. That was just kind of our strategy. Like, let's get a good system in the perimeter and then work our way into the building. Because at first we had no cameras inside of buildings, essentially. There were a couple at some of the front entrances, but for me, it was, let's start outside, and then when we move inside, let's make sure we get eyes on every single door that has the path to the exterior of the building. and then maybe stairwells as well.
Yep.
And then we would move into, okay, now let's do hallways. And I'd say like the bigger gathering areas would have been a higher priority too, like cafeterias and gyms
where
and
stuff happens.
auditoriums. Right.
So the number one reason people put cameras in is for security, and the number one reason they use the footage is for litigation purposes, for slip and fall, BS claims, crime.
It is changing a little.
Okay.
We are seeing that with our clients now that are coming back to the reactive side. It's kind of funny. I would speak for the independent school security directors a while back, and my intro for my, I'm well famous, so I have to have song intros.
100%.
I mean,
It's probably fog machines and lasers. And
definitely. As long as there's no mirrors, I'm good. But anyway, I chose the song for a reason, and it was, Johnny Cash's Cadillac One Piece at a Time. And I let it play all the way through, and if you listen to the words, and I love Johnny Cash, by the way. Love him. But anyway, that's what we see when we walk into most places of their security systems. It's like Johnny Cash's Cadillac. He built it one piece at a time.
Yep.
And in that song, it says you better have a very good adapter kit to make it work. Well, we don't have adapter kits for some of this stuff.
Right.
But people will buy pieces. They'll buy this system, and this system, and they all go in. They do not talk to each other, and there's no efficiency within it. And I was actually fortunate enough to work with Gloria at the school when we were looking at that.
Yep.
And it was a great situation because as their security director there, she also had the executive's ear to understand what the problem is, how do we solve it, and they were willing to put budget to it to come with a complete system. Which, when we say system, it's not all, there's access control systems, there's intrusion systems, burglar alarms, camera systems, mass notification system. I mean, these things all are computers, and you know how they talk. They don't to each other a lot of times. And so it's okay if it doesn't, but we do have to make those adapter kits.
You are an adapter kit.
Exactly, which are generally the process of what we do with that information rather than an actual connectivity tool. It's how are the guards, whether they're proprietary guards hired on site or third party, which, as you said, that's a whole nother podcast discussion within itself. But it's the CEO and the CFO of companies want to see a return of investment.
Sure.
It's their job.
100%.
They answer to somebody. Security is part of that. I mean, it has to be, because the cost of loss is way greater than the cost of install. In a lot of cases, it does not come back. And it's funny because we did not talk about this before, but when you were saying you have to show what your money is going to, I had written down, the first job of ours is to convince executives of the value and importance of at least evaluating a facility to see if there are any vulnerabilities, and then present a system of improvements in a manner that shows them what value has been added.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, it's still, we talk safety and we talk security and to us, you should just spend everything and keep everybody safe. But in reality, they're businesses.
Right.
Yep.
And if you can't show that, if you do not have the processes that, from the EOPs, the SOPs, and I know that's nerd language, but standard
Emergency operations plan, standard operating procedures.
Correct. And to
Translation.
walk in and I will say, we have some that are great. We walk in and say, hey, can we see your SOPs and your EOPs? And they hand them to us. I'm not going to lie and make up a statistic. Yeah, I will. Well, 80%. I just made that up, but it is generally somewhere in that area. We walk in, they're like, yeah, it's I got it in here somewhere.
Let me find it on the shelf, dust it off.
Just 80%?
I'm being
That's probably being.
I'm being generous.
Yeah.
that is the frustrating part, because everything we just put in is worthless if you don't tie that with it and have a plan in the beginning and train on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me back up on a couple of things. I think what I've seen as far as like all that stuff talking to each other, a lot of people don't realize that that's a thing. Like they don't know if they don't do the research to educate themselves like Gloria had done in her role. You may not know that the camera analytics can talk to access control, can talk to facial, like you. So I think people need to understand what you don't know, and understand there's always more out there to learn. Mm-hmm. But everybody's got a guy. Well, we got a dad, a school dad who owns a technology company. They can come do our cameras, and everybody's got a guy, and that's fine. My advice to everybody is get an education. Even if you never work with Herring Technology, come here and get an education before you make decisions about technology and implementation. Back to EOPs, plans, response. How many people, when you were in your role, how many people did you have trained and have access to the security technology on those campuses?
When I started in the role, or
when you implemented this technology and this armed response team and all, like how many people knew how to use the cameras, the access control, and how often was it done where they stayed fresh on it?
I would say six of us knew it pretty intimately.
So no matter who's where on what campus, if something happens, how many of your clients before they or even after they became Herring clients have 6 people that know how to operate that system? Silence is deafening, should we say? No, Tom did not just fall over, and we're not doing compressions on his chest right now. There was just like
not many.
Yeah. And that's really problematic, right? I mean, there's like the military has a PACE plan, they call it, right? Primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. Like there's like redundancy, right? And
military, also, they have an acronym for everything.
100%.
It's amazing.
We need to come up with an acronym, Tom. Not right now. No pressure.
It's just amazing, these humans, which part of the systems and the processes involve the technology, the people, and the procedure. Yep. And those three all have to flow back and forth, and that has to be there. I wish technology could just say, hey, we're going to secure everything. And that's not going to happen.
No, but people think it will.
It can. They try.
Yep.
And it fails.
Yep.
That's not going away. You have to have the people there. And when we're dealing with people, I don't know why some people want to take off. Our employees here would call this stuff something vacation.
I don't know what that means.
Something, or sickness, or traffic, or life happens and they're not there. You don't have enough people trained. That person goes down for whatever reason.
Right.
Someone has to be right there, and that's part of that process that it has to be written in of how that goes.
And that's not sexy, and it's not exciting, and it's not like staying up to speed on how to pull up cameras and pull footage, and like it's not
right.
It's not super exciting to most people. I know you're going to find that shocking owning a technology company, but most people it's not exciting. But repetition is everything, and processes are everything. And like any of our clients that we trained more than a year or two ago, if I threw a tourniquet at them right now, they would probably not remember how to put it on, or it would take them a second for the exact same reasons. So anyway, I think this has just been a good 30,000 foot view and discussion of why it's so important and how it's so important that all these things work together. And it is not just people, it is not just processes, and it is not just technology. Right. It is every single bit of it has to work together from the beginning. But then the other thing is fostering an environment in that business or that school or whatever where that's continued. And that, I think, starts with leadership.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's culture, for sure. And
them supporting that. So I think that's huge. If you guys have questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to us at info@defendsystems.com, or is it info@herringtechnology.com?
Oh gosh, yeah, info. I don't go to the website.
Yeah, Google it.
Yeah. Look up herringtechnology.com. Either way, though, we appreciate you guys listening. We are going to continue to crank out some episodes. So if you have ideas for episodes or guests, we'd like to hear those too. So As always, we appreciate you guys listening and to this edition of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow.